We are back for what is essentially part 2 of the tier list of the new spells in patch 9. This time I've gone for the Arcane spells. So these are spells for Wizards, Warlocks and Bards. There is some overlap, and it's not like Bards are purely Arcane as well. To be honest, they do have many Divine spells. But I'm going to be going over the spells that appear in these 3 spell lists. As last time, I'm going to go through them in alphabetical order, so we'll be switching between characters. Anyway, we start with Animate Dead. I went through it in the Divine spell list. I'm going to stick it up at critical hit already. So I've got Gale here to show the Sorceress. We have 2 versions, just like the Cleric version. It's all exactly the same.
As you wish.
I might actually get into a conversation, I'm not sure. Oh, here we are. And so we now have an extra member of the party, a zombie. So we have got this zombie here. Let's just go to its turn. So it's got the same ability as before. It's got unarmed strike, but it has the crawling gnaw. If the zombie hits an enemy with this and they die, they become a newborn zombie, which adds to our army. Let's just see if that works on corpses. And it doesn't. Which makes sense that we can't turn a zombie into a zombie, but that was a pretty good strike actually in terms of damage. 10 on 2d6. And so here, this kind of shows one benefit of the spell, is that he's now going to tank a bunch of damage. He might even die from it, which is fine. But that saves 4 hits against our other characters who are, going to be honest, far more important. So I don't think this really changes for the Arcane spell list, especially since it doesn't require concentration. Next up is Bestow Curse, which was also in the Divine spell list. All 3 classes... Oh, sorry, I've got Sorcerers in this as well. I didn't mention that. Sorry, I have Sorcerers here, which have the Arcane spells. Warlocks can have access to Bestow Curse at level 5 with a new invocation. Anyway, what does it do? Curse a creature with your touch, so we do have to get into melee range. And then we can curse one of many different things. Nice utility. We can curse any individual stat and give them disadvantage on checks and saving throws. Or we can make them take an additional 1d8 damage from our attacks and spells. Give them Dread, which can make them possibly skip their turn, which I feel in the end is more powerful. Or give them disadvantage on attack rolls against you. This is a bit sad. If it was against all creatures, that would be much more powerful. I'm now going to cast this on an enemy. Hopefully their wisdom is very low. Yeah, this is a good chance to work. Right. So I'm going to bestow Curse Dread on one of these corpses. There we are. It's the one at the end. And can I Misty Step? I can't Misty Step out of here. Okay. So the zombies are going to go soon. I'm going to focus on this one. Cursed, filled with dread. Perfect. So, we can't see any saving throw that's tried to be made. However, the zombie didn't do anything. Cursed, filled with dread. Gave into the dread. Can't move or take actions, bonus actions, or reactions. When you cast that on the boss, it'll be amazing. Anyway, so I'm going to leave it at A. It only affects a single creature. It does have versatility, but it requires concentration. People did mention in my previous video in the comments that once we get level 5 spell slots, this doesn't require concentration anymore, and that could probably go up, because then we can concentrate on something at the same time. I'm going to be looking for Counterspell next. It might take a little while for me to capture this, but I have found I can actually cast Counterspell inside the silence bubble. Let's see if the enemy tries to cast anything. They won't, obviously, inside the cut. Oh, there we are. So they're concentrating on invisibility. This is quite a good use of Counterspell because they've just gotten rid of their silence aura and they're not going to go invisible now. Bloody perfect. They've just wasted their turn and made everything perfect for me. And since we know what the enemy is casting, we get to choose. I think this can go at critical hit. This is going to be good. There will be some spells that you absolutely want to stop, and it's not like you have to use it. We do have the reaction system. Next up is Daylight. This was in the Divine spell list as well. That was in B before, I'm probably going to leave it here. One nice thing though, and I haven't mentioned so far, is that some of these spells are affected by meta magic. We can't twin Daylight, but we can, if you want to, extend it. So it lasts for 200 turns. That's actually quite a significant amount of time. If you cast this before you go to have a long rest, you can make this last a very long time indeed. So in case you didn't know what it does, you can either enchant an item to become light, and it becomes very light, or, I didn't show this last time, really, put the sphere down. This Daylight does not move now, it's stuck in place, but it provides light for the whole of this area. And I just want to point out, this doesn't give any sort of disadvantage to undead. It's not like perhaps other games have done it. It is purely for light, and it does dispel darkness around it. And I'll see. I've got darkness here as a spell for Will. Unfortunately, that hasn't actually worked, has it? We've still got darkness here. So I'm going to recast Daylight, just to see if it does or does not get rid of this magical darkness. I'm going to use the sphere again. Oh, that didn't work. Right, sphere. Ah, it's because we're inside the darkness, so I'm going to have to walk out. So yes, darkness. I might actually talk a bit about darkness later. So if there is darkness down already, then Daylight will get rid of it. But if you cast darkness on top of Daylight, it stays there. Anyway, so it does have a use against a certain spell, provides light, lasts a long time, and has a lovely range. And quite importantly, doesn't require concentration. So I'm going to leave it at B. It's not like the be all and end all. It's just a nice spell to have. Next spell is Fear. So what does it do? Project a phantasmal image so frightening it makes targets drop whatever they're holding and become fearful. If the target ends their turn where they can't see you, they can make another saving throw to shake off the fear. Requires concentration, and if it works, they have disadvantage on ability checks and attack rolls, must run, can't take additional actions, fearful, and also affected entity has dropped its weapon to the ground. So we get this area of effect, this cone. However, it doesn't seem to be highlighting both. Let's see. So it does affect all enemies within that range. As concentration, but they all, luckily, I say luckily, I've got quite a good charisma here, 17, that's okay. They all dropped their weapons. That's actually really powerful. Let's see what they do on their turn. They're running away, which is lovely. That does end, oh no, it's still fearful. Then we're knocked prone. It's going to skip my turns. Obviously didn't get everyone. He's running away. We're getting our opportunity attacks. Honestly, that was really powerful. And the more enemies you can get inside, obviously the better. If you're going to be good at this game, you're going to pick up any weapons that they've just dropped. They can pick up other weapons that are put down, obviously. And while they are running away, I'll pick up whatever I can. So they're going to be forced to pick up any useless, not useless, but weaker weapons that were around, rather than use what they normally would. So where am I going to put this? I'm thinking between A and critical hit. That was very powerful. Took them out of combat, and you can just wail away on them. And even if we hit them, they don't stop being fearful. I think I'm going to put it in critical hit. I think it's powerful enough, and as long as you've got your spell's DC being high enough, this is going to be a powerful spell. But you can see there that I wasn't really struggling with this fight, but if I was, that just turned the tide. Next up is Feign Death, critical miss. It wasn't a divine spell. I still haven't really thought. Some people gave a few potential uses of Feign Death, but I do not see why I would voluntarily do this to my own party member. To get Will back up, I now have to help him, and also takes attacks away from him, which leaves more attacks on the remaining 3 party members. Someone did mention maybe they are concentrating on something that they don't want to lose concentration on. I guess, but I would really rather not spend the level 3 spell slot to get them out of trouble when there are probably other ways of doing that. I don't have much more to say. It's fairly useless, doesn't do much for us. I think it's much more of a roleplay sort of spell, but it's only 10 turns, it's a combat spell, it just doesn't really work out. Next up is Fireball. I don't think this needs much introduction. Does what it says on the tin. Absolutely annihilates enemies in a group. Make sure you don't get your party inside. You could with a Sorcerer, although I don't have a Fireball on the Sorcerer. You can quicken it if I had it on the Sorcerer, and then cast it with your action. You get 2 Fireballs out in a turn. With an Evocation Wizard, your allies can be in the area of effect and not be hurt by it. I'll show you a few more clips of Fireball. Here, for example, it seems like these guys are just asking to be hit with a Fireball. You can't twin it because it doesn't target a single creature. Can quicken it. We get a bonus action. We could, if I had one more sorcery point, could have quickened it again. But I can still use my action. Alright, they're all dead. Try and make sure we can see the others. And these guys are mostly dead. Obviously, it's used up all my level 3 spell slots for the Sorcerer, but it's just so powerful. It's overpowered. It is well known to be overpowered. It's just the top pick for damaging spells for level 3 spells. Fly is the next spell. So what does it do? Bestow the ability to fly, which in here means fly to the target position. Doesn't mean fly up in the sky. It's going to cast it on Gale just so I can see everything that he can do. So over here we have the fly, class action, and it doesn't require an action or bonus action, which is kind of, it is nice. So I can fly up to here, wherever I want to go really, which is, I mean, it gives a massive amount of movement speed and, ooh, come on. There we are, that's nice. That used up 27 feet of movement speed, so the distance you move is how much distance is used up. So when I click here, I don't have enough movement speed to move much further. So it does allow you to get into places much more quickly and easily than you would even with the jump spell, because with the jump spell, I don't know if I would have made it from down there. I might have had to have stood back before I made the jump. And I get to break my jump up and do it multiple times. If I've got a very, very high movement speed, this would be more useful. One of the main downsides to it, though, is that it requires concentration and a level 3 spell slot, and it doesn't keep us away from danger. We still have to kind of get on the ground. It will keep us floating above surfaces. I'm going between B and C. I think some of you will absolutely hate the version of Fly because compared to 5th edition, it is nerfed. But within the game, it's still possible to use. Do you know what? I'm going to leave it at C because the movement speed we get is based on our own movement speed, which is kind of a blessing and a curse. If you've got a high movement speed, that's really great. And if you've got the jump spell, you could probably jump further than 60 feet, which doesn't require concentration. So I can take the direct route to wherever I want to go without having to worry about what's intervening mostly. Not completely, actually. Some terrain like this post here, we can't get over directly. But we can get through... Oh, let's have a look at that. I just think that looks quite cool. If movement speeds were higher, perhaps I'd put it up to B. But compared to the jump spell, it's not that much better. Obviously, I could fly down further and not take any damage. But it only lasts 10 turns. You can use it out of combat, but often jump will do, or Misty Step will do. And this is a level 3 spell. Perhaps if we had more level 3 spell slots, then maybe I might put it up to B. Let me know what you think, because I think this might be a slightly controversial one. Next is Gaseous Form. Got that on the Sorcerer here. Transform yourself or an ally into a cloud of mist to avoid attacks. The target becomes resistant, not immune, but is resistant, taking half damage to all damage. That's just all damage. Gains advantage on Constitution, Dexterity and Strength saving throws, and becomes tiny in size. Okay, and we can like twin this, or can't extend it because it's until long rest, or quicken it. But let's just cast it normally. It does require concentration. Now we can't really do anything in combat. This isn't really for combat. It's more for exploration, I do believe, or for escaping combat perhaps. Maybe my sorceress had enough, thinks she can't take any more damage, and she's going to try and fly off. However, having cast it on herself does mean that since she's concentrating on it, if she takes damage, she might lose concentration. It's kind of like Fly, but it's not exactly better. It's there for different reasons. But I think I'm going to leave it with Fly at C tier. Again, perhaps, you know, if I'm not using these properly, please do let me know. It's good for exploration. It is nicer than Fly because it's until long rest, so you can fly around places like you could with Fly as such, but you haven't got a time limit. But the downside to it is you can't do anything you normally would do in combat. So it's good for exploration but not for combat, whereas Fly is better for combat, less so for exploration due to the turn limit. So yeah, I think they're kind of similar, and again, the concentration requirement restricts it, because, I mean, do I want to concentrate on Gaseous Form or Fear? Or Gaseous Form or Bestow Curse? I'm going to choose Bestow Curse or Fear over Gaseous Form, at least in combat. The next spell is Glyph of Warding. I'm going to stick it up in critical hit already. We know that from the Divine Spell video. This time I'm going to show you Detonation. I didn't use this one last time. Obviously Sleep could be good, put these to sleep, or at least try and put Novice Garmor to sleep. Let's just see how good Detonation is. It will affect. Ooh, no, let's get cold as well, shall we? Put it here. Knocks them back. That could be really useful on the ship here. The double-hulled skiff combat. Put it in the middle of the enemy's ship and blow them all off the sides of the ship. And the best, almost the best thing about this spell, doesn't require concentration. Amazing. Straight up to critical hit. I don't need to explain it anymore, I don't think. The next spell is another classic, Haste. So what does this do? Target yourself or an ally, requires concentration. You become hastened. While you're hastened, this does exactly what the Potion of Speed does. Creature has a +2 bonus to armor class, advantage on dexterity saving throws, its movement speed is doubled, and it can take 1 additional action per turn. This is much stronger than in 5th edition, this last bit here. So let's do you know what? As a sorcerer, stop casting right. As a sorcerer, let's twin it on herself and Will. So we get an extra action, and then I can cast something else. We don't have the same restriction as we do in 5th edition, whether you like it or not. We've got this in the game, and this really makes Haste a very powerful spell. And it lasts 10 turns as opposed to the potion, which is 3. I can understand if you just want to take potions instead of this, but this does last 10 turns, while I have found some combats do go on for longer than 3 turns. So I'm going to put it, I think it's a critical hit. It's going to be difficult though, because we do have to pick just one spell to concentrate on. It depends on the situation. And since I'm here, and Will's turn is next, straight to Hunger of Hadar. To create a sphere of cold blackness teeming with unknown horrors. Creatures starting their turn in the area take 2d6 cold damage. Creatures ending their turn in the area possibly take 2d6 acid damage. The area is difficult terrain and creatures within are blinded. That's an awful lot for a single spell. It does what blindness does. It does something similar to grease. It doesn't make them prone, but creates difficult terrain and does damage. So if they're stuck inside, then it can be difficult for them to get out. They're more likely to take damage. It requires concentration, but this is quite a large area of effect. Hunger of Hadar. Like that'll work. So when they start their turn, they're going to take damage. They are blinded, so they're going to want to move out of it. But they'll be slowed because it's difficult terrain. And I also just want to point out that since I am hastened, I can now cast, well, whatever I want. Scorching Ray. Let's just try this. And since we are a Warlock, we get 4 projectiles for this instead of just the usual 3. I mean, a Warlock at level 5, sorry. Yeah, there are some targeting issues. The same animated corpse got hit with all 4 rays. They did. Oh, the armor class is very low. Hit all 4, did particularly well. Now, let's see the beginning of their turn. Took 5 damage, slowly walking out. Just about managed to get out, I think. Yeah, but it's forced them out. You can turn damage. First, you're blinded, buddy. Bit unfair that you can see through that. Maybe it's because it's on a different level. But he's going to end his turn there. Take 2 damage. They just rolled 2 on 2d6, yeah. This is a Warlock only spell. No other class gets this. I don't know if I'm putting too many up at critical hit now, but this is an amazing spell. It's unique. There's 2 different types of damage. We could double that cold damage if the targets were wet. The only real downside is its concentration. Maybe because of that it could go down to A, but also for the uniqueness, I don't often put that into my ratings, but I can hear the sound of it as well. Or maybe that's because he's lethargic. Right, that's the downside to haste. Whenever you lose concentration on it, your characters become lethargic. Some of you might want to put haste back down to A. I'm not sure about whether that's true for you or not. I still think it's top tier. Next up is Hypnotic Pattern. Create a twisting pattern of colours that hypnotizes. What does hypnotize do? So let's have a look at that. Can't move or take actions, bonus actions or reactions. Removed by taking damage or when helped. This is a bit different to Fear because enemies could help each other. And if you hit someone under this condition, then they lose the condition. I'm going to just get out of the way here, take a few opportunity attacks. I don't want to get involved in this area of effect because it would target your allies as well. It targets everyone inside the area. Let's do this. So hypnotized, requires concentration. Oh, I'm inside the Hunger of Hadar. Oh no, that's a problem. Might lose concentration now. Oh no, party saving throw. Right, they took damage from Hunger of Hadar. Oh, concentration broken. That's the downside to it. Otherwise, these guys would have been doing nothing. That's a problem with concentration rather than the spell itself. I mean, I feel a bit bad. Maybe I need to find something to differentiate these. But this is a very powerful control spell. If I hadn't used it on the character who's right in melee, then this would have been far more effective if I'd used it on a different character a bit further away. Any enemies who are under the effects of this spell, you can just ignore. You don't need to worry about them. And then just focus on the other enemies. If they start helping each other, fine. But that's fine because you've used one action, whereas the enemies will use at least one action to get out of it. Probably more though. Especially since you would have, hopefully, used it on more than one enemy. Magic Weapon is up next, and it's the only non-level 3 spell in this video. Level 2 spell. Only available to wizards though, out of all the classes I've got here. This came up in the Divine list as well. This came up for Paladins, I think it was. It's a level 2 transmutation spell. The weapon becomes magical, receiving a +1 bonus to attack rolls and damage rolls until long rest, which is good, but concentration. It's difficult to really justify the use of concentration. I guess my Bard. So now the Bard
for a dull moment.
Here we are. Their weapon has a +1 enchantment, which is nice. Right, it's great. It stacks with magical weapons. I showed it before. Considering all these other concentration spells at the top, I'm going to put it down and see it. I think it does have its uses. It's only a level 2 spell, which is nice compared to all the others. But I can either concentrate on Haste, where I'm giving an ally an extra action per turn. And I want to point out with Haste, I forgot to say it earlier, is that for martial classes, they get their attack and extra attack with each action. So basically they take 4 attacks per turn from the actions alone, plus any from the bonus action or actions. So that essentially doubles the output of damage from martial classes as well, Haste does. So yeah, I mean, I'd much prefer to concentrate on Haste than magic weapon. Protection from energy. This was awful before, it's awful now. I'll just about go through it. Touch a creature, grant it resistance to one of these types of damage. Requires concentration and a level 3 spell slot. We've got potions to do this. We've got a few items, magical items to do this. I do not want to use a level 3 spell slot for this. I would heavily advise against it. There might be some niche uses, of course. Most spells have some niche use. I also don't want to waste one of my prepared spells for protection from energy when I've got Fireball, Glyph of Warding, Haste, Counterspell, Animate Dead to compete with it. Yeah, I don't think anyone's going to convince me to take this. Remove Curse now. Likewise, it came up in the Divine video. Touch a creature or object to remove all curses affecting it. It's a level 3 spell slot. Doesn't require concentration, which is fine. But we don't really have many curses around right now. I'm kind of going to leave it and see, because it doesn't require concentration or anything. And you can prepare outside of combat and use it if you need to, and then forget it and learn another spell instead. Prepare another spell instead. It's almost a critical miss because we don't really have many curses right now, but it's early in patch 9, perhaps I haven't found the curses yet, so I'm going to give it kind of the benefit of the doubt and leave it in C tier here. Sleet Storm is next. So here we are. Reloaded the battle. So what does it do? Quick reminder, call forth a storm of sleet that douses fires, creates an ice surface, and disrupts the concentration of the casters. 10 turns requires concentration. I think a very large area of effect. I'm going to try and set this up so anyone who comes towards us is going to have difficulty. Knock them all prone. That has half their movement speed next turn, and they'll potentially fall over next turn perhaps. So I want to get out of there. In fact, I'll just move back with everyone just to see what the enemy does. Ooh, silenced. Not a bad choice. Let's see what happens. Ooh, if he failed a saving throw, he would have dropped concentration immediately. Let's see the zombies have a go. They've got to dash because they can't even move that fast, and they're falling over prone. Absolutely amazing. It's a very good control spell. Unfortunately, in a way, it doesn't make enemies wet, but it's an amazing control spell. I'm going to leave it at A. Some of you might argue critical hit, but it's a strong spell. Don't think it's a bad spell whatsoever, but I feel like it's maybe missing something. It's not something I'm necessarily going to cast like here. I mean, these enemies are weak. I probably would rather have just cast Fireball. Just be done with it. And I think also for A, because of concentration. And it's got to compete against all of these other good concentration spells. Next up is Speak with Dead. Now, I'm going to put it in critical miss, not because it's a bad spell. It's an absolutely fine spell. It's great for finding out information. It's great for role-playing. I'm not going to show you here because it needs to be cast outside of combat. Reason I'm putting it at critical miss. I just want to remind everyone watching, this is early access. Level 5 is the highest level we can get to. And in early access, we have a necklace with this spell that gives it to us for free. And you're almost certainly going to find this necklace because it's in a place you find early on as well. One of the earliest magical items you can even find. If it wasn't for the fact this is early access, patch 9, I'd probably put it A or B. Doesn't require concentration, you can use it throughout the day, gets extra information, but as it stands, because we get an item that lets us do this for free, and also, sorry, just remembered, there's also another way of getting this spell permanently for a character, which is using the Book of Thay, the Necromancy book. You can get it on your character without even having to cast a spell slot. That's the only reason I'm going to leave it a critical miss, because why am I going to use one of my 2 valuable level 3 spell slots when there are other ways of getting it for free? The penultimate spell is Stinking Cloud. Create a cloud of gas so nauseating it prevents creatures from taking actions. That alone basically tells us what happens. Creatures caught in this cloud might be prevented from taking actions due to its foul smell. They need to pass a Constitution saving throw. Most enemies, not most, yeah, quite a lot of enemies have got a fairly decent Constitution. Does require concentration. So this area of effects isn't too bad. Let's try and stick it somewhere where they're going to be on their way towards us. There we are. Unfortunately, zombies are immune to being nauseous. Kind of makes sense, I suppose. Let's see if anyone else goes through it. I might have just put it in just the wrong place because you can go around it. And the Duergar might actually get advantage against this. We'll see. 30 turns remaining. Although then it says 10 turns there. Right. Gale's also going to try. That was nice. Saved. Unfortunately, this happened to roll quite well. If I put it in an area that actually makes a difference. All saved. Nauseous. So cannot take an action. Just want to show you that just to be absolutely certain. Can't take actions. Very powerful. Very powerful. Did take a bonus action though there. So I'm going to put Stinking Cloud. I'm going to stick it at B. It's not bad by itself, but it does what Sleet Storm does, but less. In fact, I'm going to put it down to C. Just compared to Sleet Storm, because Sleet Storm will force a dexterity saving throw compared to Constitution, which I think generally is a tiny bit lower. But Sleet Storm creates an area of difficult terrain. Plus, if they fail the dexterity saving throw, that's it. They fall over. They lose concentration. No actions, no bonus actions, no reactions. And you're safe, and both of them require concentration, and the area of effect of Stinking Cloud is lower. I don't think it's a bad spell, but honestly, Sleet Storm seems to outclass it for what it does. And lastly is Vampiric Touch. Touch an enemy to siphon their life force. You regain half as many hit points as the damage they take, which is nice. For 10 turns, you use Vampiric Touch. You can use Vampiric Touch again without expending an additional spell slot, so that's why it requires concentration. Now, Gale can only reach this corpse here. Decent amount of damage. Healed 4 hit points because we did... Oh, this is a bit strange. It has separated the healing roll and damage roll. Ah, right, it says you regain half as many hit points, so they've made that 2 separate rolls. I don't know why, I really would have thought they were together, but you could then end up healing yourself for more than the damage you did, or like... Here, I heal myself for less than the damage I did. Now, Gale isn't the best person to be using this with because he could easily lose concentration, to be honest. I do have Will here. He is... How's he going to do this? He's going to do this. Second opportunity attack, whatever. His armor class is a bit better. Not massively. So, what have we got? Vampiric Touch. 75% chance. Decent chance. We missed. Still concentrating. Let's see what the enemies do. I might go back to Stinking Cloud in a second, because I did realize concentration broken. But that's me putting Gale in melee without having even mage armor up. So I just want to go back to Stinking Cloud for a second, because on that previous turn, Lurgan here, so what happened to Lurgan is he lost his action for 2 turns in a row, which isn't what Sleet Storm does. So actually, keeping that in mind, I'm going to put that up to A. Since it takes an action away for 2 turns, potentially, rather than just 1. It's very powerful. So even if I'd lost concentration, he still would have lost his action that turn. Alright, so Will, you've still got Vampiric Touch. Let's go. Oh, I also want to point out, so what I can do, use the recast button here, not the cast button here. Critical miss, but because I've got 2 actions, do it again. So where am I going to put this? I'm going to leave it at B. If you can keep concentration, it's good. The damage is decent. It's not the best, but it's okay. And it can heal you at the same time. And if you are hasted, you get 2 lots of it, although that's a special instance. But the downside mainly is the concentration aspect. Because again, compared to some of these other things, the Will, do I want to be concentrating on Hunger of Hadar or Vampiric Touch? Probably Hunger of Hadar, to be honest. Or Hypnotic Pattern. But it's definitely got its uses. You can make a character who's got a decent armor class and a high constitution, and they'll be able to maintain concentration better, maybe high movement speed to get in and out, and you could keep them healed for quite some time. So I just want to kind of reiterate, this tier list is for the fact that we are in patch 9 and that level 5 is the maximum level, and we've only got 2 level 3 spell slots, and we can only remember a limited number of spells per day, or we have a limited number of spells known. So we do have to keep, I am keeping all of that in mind. When the game is finally released, I'll then change some of these probably, because we're going to have more spell slots available, and there will be other, even better spells to be concentrating on than perhaps Hunger of Hadar or Haste. There'll be better buffs or better damaging or controlling spells out there. Let me know where you'd put things. Maybe I have not used one of these correctly, I haven't thought of a good use. Please do let me know. We can have a discussion in the comments below. If you made it this far, please consider subscribing. Thank you very much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.